Hello there, people of the internet. Probably going to be a short video, but I still want to make it. I want to talk about the effectiveness of 5.56 and 7.62 by 39, just because I get a lot of different comments, and a lot of people seem to think that this is like a BB gun level cartridge. Now, we're going to go ahead and roll 5.45 into this discussion as well, which is like the Russian equivalent of a 5.56. They're all going to be basically used interchangeably. But those three cartridges are by far the most popular intermediate cartridges out there. Intermediate cartridges exist for a reason. They're lightweight, easy to lug around. You can fit a lot of them in a small amount of space. They're relatively inexpensive to manufacture in comparison to full power ammunition simply because there's less components in it. There's just a lot of benefits to an intermediate round. But their effectiveness shines in terms of a lack of recoil, meaning faster follow-up shots with more accuracy. On top of that, you have, how do I want to say this? You have an effective enough distance in terms of capability from these cartridges to allow them to be able to handle most of your situations within the realms of distance that most of these encounters would be taking place at. Like, for example, if we're looking at it from a military context, most of your encounters from a military force, like even your modern day professional military forces, if we're talking about small arms on small arms conflict, is going to be within 300 yards. And most of those encounters are going to be within 100 yards. Both the 7.62 by 39 and the 5.56 are dramatically effective on soft targets out at those distances. I'm sure somebody's going to go yelling about body armor down in the comments below. Modern body armor is rated for black tip 30-06. So even if you have a modern H-car with black tip tungsten core armor piercing 30-06 in it, you're still not punching through that armor. The goal is to get a bunch of rounds on target. Hopefully, maybe one of them will hit a pelvic bowl or something that's not covered in armor. But if you can send a bunch of accurate rounds downrange without developing a flinch from a full power rifle cartridge and not having to aim like you're mortaring rounds in like you would with a pistol caliber carbine, that's where intermediate caliber cartridges really begin to shine. Most of your situations, you're not going to come across people that have body armor. Unless we're talking about going up against a substantial modern military force, most situations you're not going against people that have body armor. Like, very, very seldomly will you end up going across, I'm checking my battery life here, very seldomly will you come across a situation where you have to go up on somebody with body armor, and even if that is the case, aim for that pelvic bowl. The pelvic bowl, people bleed out really, really fast. People underestimate just how devastating a round in the upper legs or pelvic bowl would be. But the ranges of these intermediate cartridges, the capabilities of the cartridges are well within the ranges of what most situations are going to need a cartridge to be able to solve will be. I don't know what that sentence was. The capabilities of 5.56 and 7.62 by 39 are still within the ranges of what most situations would take place at. I get the feeling that if things were to start to go down and get significantly bad, most of your encounters will likely be within shouting distance, which is, again, well within the ranges of these different cartridges. Now, if we start looking at other things, like, for example, using these cartridges for hunting, the 7.62 by 39 might be the better hunting round, depending on bullet design and things like that. Just because it's a 30 caliber round, it's got more mass, you're going to get better penetration. But if you were to use something like a 77 grain VMAX round through your AR, if you have the twist rate to be able to stabilize that, something like that is dramatically devastating on medium game and, you know, smaller. As a matter of fact, I hit a score with it once and it literally like turned it into mist. they're dramatically effective, those VMAX rounds. And even if you want to go with something more like an M855, M855A1 round, which is what the military is currently using, a lead-free steel core, like copper cupped round. Those are also extraordinarily effective on soft targets if you want a more generalized projectile, but at the prices that those cost, I would just go with the VMAX rounds myself. But anyway, bottom line, these cartridges are still quite good if you want to start talking about using them for hunting. Intermediate rounds are not full power rounds by any stretch of the imagination, but they're still quite good. And assuming that you don't do anything stupid like shoot something in, I don't know, the hoof, then it should be quite effective at being able to put down whatever it is that you're going after. Even if we start looking at like large game, even if we start looking at defense against large game, if you have a grizzly bear coming right at you, if you see a grizzly bear running at you, a grizzly bear has to be right on top of you for you to do damage, and you have a ranged weapon. So you have the opportunity to do a lot of damage to that grizzly bear as it's charging you, even if you have something like the 223. If you mag dump 30 rounds into a grizzly bear as it charges at you, especially if you got something like a red dot and can make consistent headshots, especially if you're rocking something like 77 grain BMAX, as that grizzly bear runs at you and you mag dump that 30 rounds into it, I don't care how big that grizzly bear is, that thing is going down. Even if that thing is right on top of you, anyone with a quick trigger finger from a semi-auto rifle, a semi-auto intermediate cartridge firing rifle, can be pretty gosh darn accurate and pull that trigger pretty gosh darn quickly. Versus something like, say, a 30-06 M1 Grand, people tend to have a little bit more trouble consistently, accurately shooting that rifle with fairly quick follow-up shots. It's definitely a more difficult of a platform. So although the cartridges are more powerful, you'd probably get better accuracy with that intermediate cartridge, which is one of the main reasons why it was designed. So these intermediate cartridges are just really the best do-all, do-everything cartridge in most of your situations. There are some instances where, like, I don't know, let's say somebody's driving a car at you. I don't care if you have, you know, 5.56 or 7.62 by 39, or even something like 308 or something like that. That's not going to stop a car. It might stop the engine and shut it off and whatnot, but the momentum of that car is still coming at you. You need something more like an anti-material rifle, or maybe even a light artillery to be able to stop something like that in its tracks. I've seen that happen too. That's always pretty cool to watch. But anyway, these are still rifle rounds. The limitations of rifle rounds are the limitations of rifle rounds, and there's no way that we can really get beyond that. But the capabilities of the intermediate cartridge are still well within the realms of what most people will argue that you need a rifle cartridge to be able to do, which is one of the main reasons why 5.56, 5.45, and 7.62 by 39 are so overwhelmingly popular, just because those intermediate cartridges are good enough to handle most of those situations. Whereas something like, say, I got an 8mm Mauser rifle right here, which is definitely not a mainstream cartridge, but it is a full power rifle cartridge. Something like this right here, not necessarily would be overkill, although in most situations it would be overkill. The limitations of a platform like this or a cartridge like this, it just does not give way. The cons dramatically outweigh the pros of having a more powerful round. And that is the whole point of this video. The benefits of intermediate cartridges dramatically outweigh all of the cons that you get from a full power rifle cartridge. Full power rifle cartridge, you carry less ammo. It does hit harder. I will give you that. It definitely does hit harder. But at the distances that most things take place at, intermediate rounds hit hard enough to stop most of the situations that you would want to stop. So that's my rant. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.